I'm sorry that carbon-based fuels are efficient, they just are. I didn't make it that way. That's just the way things are. And if you're asking a family in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa not to use carbon-based emissions because you are worried about climate change in 100 years, while they are worried about literally their children dying from heat exhaustion, or they are worried about their children dying because they cannot use fossil fuels to power light bulbs, right? Because there have to be energy plants, right? That is first worldism at its best, right? Environment, I mean, it is a sad fact of human life that environmentalism is a first world concern. It is, because when you're trying to get by and make sure your kids don't die, this is last on your list of things that you care about. So if you really believe that you are going to cram down a carbon-free world on people who are literally, in many cases, burning animal dung for fuel, you got another thing coming. Okay, it also happens to be a pipe dream. When people say, oh, the Paris Accords, the wonderful Paris Climate Accords. We'll get to that in a second. But suffice it to say, China and India both signed on to the Paris Climate Accords. They are the world's leading carbon emitters. They're not going to lower their emissions anytime soon. Again, that is because if you are a developing country, you would like to become a developed country. And the way that you do that typically is by using carbon-based fuels. And as I say, the Paris Accords are a dud anyway. Bjorn Lomborg, Dr. Bjorn Lomborg, climatologist, he found in his research that the Paris Accords would have done nothing about global temperature. He said, if we measure the impact of every nation fulfilling every promise by 2030, the total temperature reduction would be 0.048 degrees Celsius by 2100. Even if we assume these promises would be extended for another 70 years, there's still little impact if every nation fulfills every promise by 2030 and continues to fulfill those promises until the end of the century, and there is no CO2 leakage to non-committed nations. The entirety of the Paris promises will reduce temperature rises by 0.17 degrees Celsius by 2100. In other words, most of the stuff is now baked into the cake. Right? The carbon that's in the air is going to stay in the air. By the way, it is worth noting that for all the criticism America has taken, our emissions have been falling steadily since 2000, at least 7.5% according to the EPA. In 2017, the US had the largest reductions in carbon dioxide emissions of any country on planet Earth. And adaptation is even a better solution, because it turns out humans are great at adaptation, which is why there are 7 billion of us on the planet. And one of the great ways that you adapt is through capitalism, because one of the reasons that you are going to have a better world by 2100 than you have today, despite climate change, is that the economy is going to continue to grow by virtually every estimate. Oren Cass of the Manhattan Institute points out, regarding Nordhaus's model, by 2100, regardless of climate change, the world, the entire world, is more than 6 times wealthier than in 2015. Right? Because we keep getting better at doing stuff. Human beings get better at doing stuff. So should we build more seawalls? Absolutely. Should we take mitigating measures? Of course. And does that involve infrastructure building? Sure. But if we are talking about completely destroying the entire carbon-based economy in favor of unproven technologies that do not compete on a per capita level, people don't know what they're talking about. This is particularly true with regard to some pie-in-the-sky folks on the left. Now, you want to know how somebody is pro-science and somebody's anti-science? Ask them a quick question on global warming. Should we get rid of natural gas and nuclear power? If their answer is yes, they are not serious about climate change. The entire American reduction in climate emissions is due to the substitution of natural gas for oil. The entirety.